let's go ahead and start the meeting. We'll see if Maria comes in. Roll call. Everybody but Maria, Marta, John. Ronnie. Anybody else? Everybody else is here?
Pacheco usually comes.
Oh, right, Christine Pacheco.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's why you're here. You're like representing
Correct.
the
Yes.
city management. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? Okay. Can I get a
Motion to approve.
thank
Second.
you? Thank you. Okay. Public invited to be heard. Is anybody here from the public? Nope. Okay. Approval of previous month's minutes. Let me just ask first, did everybody get a chance to read all of the attachments that Ronnie sent to us about the meeting? Okay. Does anybody have any corrections to the last month's minutes?
I have one small one.
Okay?
Just my name. It's spelled with 2 N's.
Okay.
Pretty common. Don't feel bad.
So it's what?
It's Pillman with 2 L's and 2 N's.
Pillmann. Okay, gotcha. Okay, can I have a motion to approve previous month? What, sorry.
I have a couple of.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So one, I think I was absent that time. And I think number A, update Sandy Cedar's name, last name is spelled incorrectly. The other thing is we've talked about this before, and I think it would move us along a little faster, is Ronnie expects us to turn in our information on our reports ahead of time, which we do. And I think that in the minutes, and even when we're in the meeting, maybe all we needs to be said is the report's attached, if there's any questions, so that way we're kind
So
of
we don't
along a little faster. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So that way we wouldn't say no updates, that type of thing. So we just, because they're all attached when this stuff comes out. So we all
Okay.
have read them.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to check something when Tammy's talking. Okay, so new business. I would like to introduce everybody to Cami Edson. And tell me your name again.
Dylan Zamora Silva.
Dylan. Very nice to meet you both. They are with the Vision Zero program for Longmont. And we did have somebody drop out who was going to be speaking today. And Cami was great about being available to come in because we've all been talking about Vision Zero. And we just never put it into a slot in a meeting. So as soon as we had a slot open, I was like, Ronnie, this is a perfect opportunity to get Vision Zero in here. So I'm so glad you were available. And Cami, take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Lonnie, and thanks for inviting us all today. I know last year you had a few presentations on the transportation mobility plan. And Vision Zero was going to maybe come with it a couple times, but then we realized it might not make sense being that we're so new and they needed to kind of focus on that plan. But Vision Zero and the Transportation Master Plan are really going to sync together. So some of the things that we talk about you may have heard before or might sound familiar, but we just want to start off by saying the goal is we are going to develop a Vision Zero action plan for the city. It will feather together with the TMP, and then whenever we do an update on either plan again, it will just become one plan. They were designed initially now because Vision Zero staff came on board after there was transportation staff, since we're pretty new as far as a strategy for the city. But ultimately they work together, they're intended to go together, and moving forward we won't have two plans, we'll always have one plan moving forward where the transportation mobility plan and Vision Zero are just interlinked and essentially the same as Vision Zero is sort of the strategy we want to infuse across how we manage our entire transportation system. So Vision Zero, go ahead Dylan, go to the next slide. These are this is our brief agenda for today. We're going to do an introduction review of kind of the what, who, how, when of Vision Zero, a real basic introduction. We know full well you will have lots of questions and we may not have time to get to all of them. So Dylan and I always like to offer, we're happy to come back We can meet again with a subgroup if anybody who wants to get into the weeds a little bit more. Maybe everyone isn't interested. If you all are interested, we'll work with you however it makes sense so you can get the information about Vision Zero you need, because we're just going to kind of scrape the surface in the time we have. We're also going to spend some time talking about senior-focused engagement, specifically around the action plan, because we'll get into that. You're one of our key primary groups that Vision Zero wants to focus on. So we want to make sure when we do this action plan and develop it, that we're really engaging with seniors in the right way and in all the different ways we can. So we want to introduce those two topics. Go ahead, Dylan. Sort of our plan. Oh, go ahead, we'll go one more. So just to launch right in, what is Vision Zero? So what I want you to take away from it is that it is not a program, it is not a project. It is really a set of strategies. It's like a different approach. It's a different lens on how to address managing the transportation system. And what it really is it's people-centered versus vehicle-centered. Ever since the creation of the car, and as you can imagine over the last 70, 80 years, it's just been moving traffic as quickly as possible has been what the transportation system is sort of focused on. In short, it's a lot more complicated than that, but it's really been a vehicle-focused system. Vision Zero flips that script. It really is saying, let's put people first. Let's put the most vulnerable people first, as like, how do we make our system safer so those who are the most at risk outside of vehicles are protected, so as whatever mode they choose to move around in, they're going to have a safe experience. And that probably doesn't feel true for most of us today. So that is sort of the idea, that we flip the script away from focusing on vehicles to putting people at the top of the sort of the food chain as far as who matters and who should we be designing and managing our system for. So you can see in the pictures just sort of a difference in the traditional approach versus the Vision Zero approach. Go ahead, Dylan. So in 2023, City Council adopted essentially a resolution that says we are now a Vision Zero city, and we have a goal to eliminate, so get to zero, literally eliminate all fatal and serious injury roadway crashes by 2040. So we have 15 years to accomplish this goal. Everyone always asks, do you feel like, is it accomplishable? Is it doable? And I do. I really think I do. A lot of people doubt it. There's a lot of skeptics out there. But there is a pathway. There are systems. I'll introduce you to those on how we're going to get there. But just wanted to point out, you may be well aware of this, especially as informed board members, but the City Council has 3 core services. Transportation is one of them. Sorry, this is looking a little blurry. But I just wanted to point out in the transportation description, I don't know if you can read that at all, but it essentially says we would like a transportation mobility system that works for all modes, all abilities, with Vision Zero at its core. So Vision Zero is named as a council priority to let's start infusing these strategies as a way we manage our transportation system. So we're going to try to bake it into the entire system. That's why I want it to be clear. It's not a program or a project that's just going to operate independently as its own thing. It's going to be across kind of the whole system. Go ahead, Dylan. So how we accomplish Vision Zero, how do we get to that goal of fatal or zero fatalities and zero serious injuries, is there is a framework or an approach that's called the SAFE system. The SAFE system has been adopted from Europe, where they've already successfully implemented this. It's been adopted by the government, U.S. government, state governments, local communities. This is the framework of how do we implement it that we reach there. So the system is made up of these 5 SAFE system elements. There's safer people, safer speeds, safer roads, safer vehicles, and post-crash care. All of the work we do moving forward should fall into one of these buckets. If we aren't addressing safer roads from a perspective of making it safer for the most vulnerable, while still moving traffic, which is still important, reducing speeds due to the idea of, the higher the speed, the more kinetic energy. The more kinetic energy is, the more severe the crash is going to be. So the more we can reduce the kinetic energy in a crash, we should have less severe and less fatal injuries. So really looking at all the different ways we can approach making speed safer in Longmont. safer people, what can people do, their behaviors, their choices, how can the education they are receiving or not receiving. The road design, the way we design our roads right now, we have a lot of very wide open roads that whatever the posted speed is doesn't mean that's what the speed limit people go. Our brains resonate with the speed limit sign. We know logically what it's telling us to do, but what the road is actually guiding you to do is a totally different thing. So really thinking about how can we redesign roads, intersections, trailheads, things that can be more self-enforcing, that you're less likely to make a mistake and hurt someone or get hurt yourself. So road design is going to be key to this. Safer vehicles. Well, they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? The kinetic energy in a crash, if you have a little person and a giant truck, we know what's going to happen versus a smaller car, smaller people, what's likely going to happen, slower speeds, all of these things. You can see how all of these working together are going to help us get to that goal of reducing our fatal injuries and our fatal injuries and our serious injuries. Post-crash care has a lot to do with what happens right when there is an emergency. What kind of care are people getting from the moment they're injured to the time they get to the hospital, what happens at the hospital, and then even beyond that, like survivor support. What sort of things can happen to make sure that people are getting the best care possible to increase their chances of surviving a crash. So all of these things together, the SAFE system, again, we could totally get into the weeds. We don't have time today, but if you're interested, we're happy to go down any of these paths with you. Go ahead, Dill. So who gets prioritized in Vision Zero? Vulnerable road users, VRUs. It's a very key term you'll probably hear me talk a lot about when we're getting jargony. But in short, the Colorado law defines vulnerable road users as someone who is not shielded by a vehicle and who is therefore at greater risk of injury or crash with a motor vehicle. So as you can see, Vision Zero is prioritizing vulnerable road users. Again, anyone who's not protected by all of the great protections that vehicles have advanced, though that doesn't necessarily make them safe for anyone outside of the vehicle. Safer for people inside the vehicles, not as safe for people outside the vehicles. So priority vulnerable road user groups for the city are youth, older adults, and those experiencing disabilities. They're kind of the logical ones. Go ahead, Dylan, I have one more. What this encompasses is kind of any pedestrian, walkers, anyone just using their feet in any way or their legs to move, any type of cyclists or wheeled, so even skateboarders, roller skaters, anybody like that, anyone using a mobility device, anyone on the roadside working, right? They're at a much more exposed and a high-risk situation. Emergency personnel, I mean, when you think about our tow truck operators or the construction workers, all of those folks. All of these folks do not have that protection. They're all considered vulnerable road users. So we really want to look at those 5 elements: safer people, safer roads, safer vehicles, post-crash care. All of that is how do we start addressing plans, policies, procedures, projects, programs that the city implements to make sure that these folks are getting the attention they deserve, because we've only been focusing on vehicles, if we're being honest. So this is kind of that flip the script. We need to start managing our transportation system just differently and focusing on these folks. Go ahead. So Dylan and I were both hired last year in 2024, about 6 months apart. So we're really just getting this work launched. I'm not going to go into detail about all of the things on this list, but just wanted to show you we've started a bunch of stuff. A lot of this stuff is still ongoing. We're looking at baseline data analysis. The city has been producing a crash report. A lot of you might be familiar with the City of Longmont crash report, which is great. Traffic engineering has been doing that for years, but it's really looking at all crashes. There's never been the concentrated effort to really hone in on what's going on with our fatal and severe injury crashes. So we're going back and looking at just the fatal and severe injury crashes, since that is the goal we've been given, is to reduce those to 0. And we're building data management systems and trying to come up with, what do we need to start being able to share more transparently what we know about what's happening in our fatal and serious injury crashes. We've been working real hard between Dylan and I to sort of identify who are these potential stakeholder groups and VRU, vulnerable road user groups, that we should be talking with and connecting with before we launch our action plan effort to make sure that those folks can be involved in that effort. We've been pre-drafting a plan, just kind of getting it ready before we hire consultants who will kind of take over and do all the writing on that part. We've secured some grant funding. We hosted a World Day of Remembrance. We'll definitely share more about that with you all later. Each fall, it's a day to honor those we have lost or who have been injured, and to give family members or friends who have lost someone a place to come and honor folks that we've lost. We developed a website, a newsletter, a task force. There's subcommittees. We can talk a little bit more about those later. So what we know from the work that we've already completed, I'm going to just give you a sample of the type of data we've been analyzing, but we've really been honing in, like I said, on fatal and serious injury crashes. So here are some of the numbers. Go ahead, Dylan. So we have a lot of data and tables. We have been looking at our crash types. So when we look at what kind of crashes are going on in Longmont, left turns are our number one cause of fatal and serious injury crashes. The next most common is broadside to the next to the next. So these are the top 10 crash types contributing to our fatal and serious injury crashes. Go ahead, Dylan. We've also been working on some mapping kind of data. So not that you can see this or understand this here, but it's a heat map. Essentially, the yellower it is, the brighter it is. That is where our concentration, there's a higher concentration of fatal and serious injuries. So we've been looking at a numbers game, a types game, a locations game. We're working on all of this analyses behind the scenes, all this different type of data. We have almost done to present to the public, kind of here's our baseline data set that we know of to sort of launch into the action planning process. So all of this type of stuff is available if you want it. It's just not all publicly available yet because we're trying to get it formatted in a way that we can share it in a transparent, kind of publicly digestible way. Did I say? Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
So before this popped up, the heat map, there was the top 10 there.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like, so that left turn one, number one, that's vehicle to vehicle, correct? Mm-hmm. Number two is vehicle to vehicle.
A lot of them are going to be vehicle to vehicle.
And that's not, am I correct? That's really not your focus. Your focus
So we
is
still want to focus on reducing fatal and serious crashes as a whole, but when we make safety improvements to address these crashes, we want to make sure that pedestrians and cyclists and all of those are also prioritized in those if it's a design change.
Okay.
So it gets safer for everyone. Instead of just redesigning the road to move the vehicles and not considering other folks who have to navigate those same spaces. Because as you can see, pedestrian crashes still are top 5.
Yeah.
Bike crashes, top 6. Like, it's still happening, but yes, car to car is a higher amount of our fatal crashes.
Right. So that leads to a follow-up on the motorized bike. One of the things that I've noticed on my street, certainly driving around town, is the increasing prevalence of these electrified, not just bicycles, but these literally mini bikes or
The
motorcycles
motorbikes
that are electrified.
Yeah.
If they're supposed to be licensed, I'm not seeing them licensed.
There's no regulations at all at the state
And
level or local level.
they're doing down my street, they're doing 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So this
So
thing about they're supposed to be governor to a speed limit, the ones I'm seeing, they're doing a good solid 40 miles an hour down my street.
Yeah, that is definitely on anybody's radar who's working in this transportation safety field, is this whole new category
Right.
of vehicles,
Right.
essentially mode types, it's scary for some and dangerous and posing problems, and there needs to be, so there's definitely people working on it. So I don't have the perfect answer for it, but just know it's definitely on the radar and something
Good.
we'll work on.
Okay.
Let me get through this real quick. I only have 2 more slides. Oh, sorry.
Just two things. One,
Matt?
I do have a perfect answer.
Oh,
for
good.
you. No, I'm just kidding. But I did want to note, John, that that is something we're looking at from a transportation demand management strategy,
Mhm.
separate from the Vision Zero process as well. One of the things that we were looking at explicitly this winter was just like, what's the data show about where like electric bikes are going to be going longer term, and there are different classifications of electric bikes too. The data from the state indicates that we might be getting to. I have a question about that chart actually.
Oh, I was gonna say, sure.
That we're expected to get to about the equivalent of 10% of the current registered vehicles on the road would, that number, so about 120,000-ish, would be electric bikes come 2030. Not in Longmont per se, but like across the state.
Yeah.
So that is a meaningful percentage of the transportation system now. And so we are actively thinking about some of those pieces and what types of trails or roads or bike lanes need to be in place to really support that.
There's an active work group right now at the city looking at e-bike speeds, trail interactions, should we be posting speeds? Like all these discussions are definitely happening. There's just not necessarily been decisions or guidance or decisions made yet, but these discussions are happening with transportation folks, environmental folks.
Well,
all
and
sorts
these
of different
observations
folks.
and comments are particularly insightful to help
Yes, absolutely.
inform those kinds of considerations.
For
The
sure.
clarification I had on this chart
sure.
here.
And I'm sorry, because I didn't present it in a way that you can really see it or digest it.
Well,
But
so the fatalities versus
you
fatal
want to
crashes.
click one more?
No, so fatalities versus
sorry.
fatal crashes here. They're the identical same numbers and years, and I presume the distinction, what that's trying to show is that
People.
it's people versus crashes.
Incident.
But really what we would be taking away from that would be you could have like 20 fatalities from one crash.
Exactly.
Right?
It
And so
just
it's looking at
happened
the
to
discrete
be-
number of incidents versus
Yeah.
the discrete number of fatalities.
Yeah, thank you for that. It just happened to be that they matched in these years,
Yeah.
but some years it could be that there's one fatal crash, but there was 3 to 4 victims, so this number would be higher. And so we will always try to present for consistently the people number first, the crash number, the incident number
Though
second.
interestingly, what the city has the most control over is the crashes.
Crash. Yeah. But, right, it's the people who are dying, it's the people who are matters. The people count, we want to get to zero, like there may still be crashes. We're not going to eliminate crashes in Longmont, but the goal is to eliminate those ones that are killing people and are seriously harming them. Their life is changed forever after. So, again, we can totally dig into data, and we will in our task force. We'll talk about that. That's a place where for members of the public who are really interested in getting into these topics, we have a task force. We can tell you about that too. And so we bring all of this to our public-facing task force as a way to share with the public, as well as the newsletter, website. And again, we're trying to develop some new ways to share the data more transparently. So just in short, go ahead and click the next one. We're working on, these are some of the, as we're finishing up our baseline data analysis in 2025, we need to update a lot with the 2024 crash information that has just been made available, and we're cleaning it now. So we need to update a bunch, and here are some data analysis things that we haven't done yet based on our fatal and serious injury crashes. Is really what are those key locations? We sort of know from our heat map that the specific intersections, the specific segments on the road. What are the conditions around those areas, like lighting, pavement, all these different conditions. Looking at, let's not wait for crashes to happen, but based on what we've learned from where they have happened, how can we be predictive and say, these conditions exist similarly in other places, so let's go fix them too before there's a fatal crash to try to prevent them from happening. As well as looking at, there is a lot of science and research behind what are the effective countermeasures for what you should be doing to rebuild your roads differently or manage your transportation system differently. So we'll be doing the work to match up based on locations and crash types and all of that. What are the proven effective countermeasures that make sense for what's been going on here? So we will address things from hotspots. We'll address things from like a systemic point of view, like where are the same things happening in the same way, let's go fix those situations. And then as well as like system-wide, where can we go and just be preventative in addressing these types of crashes? So good news is, one more, Dylan, all of this relates back to, like I said, the work in these 5 buckets. It will all connect to one of these safe system elements. If it doesn't, we probably shouldn't be wasting our precious resources on it. So we will make sure that everything that comes out of our Vision Zero action plan as far as recommendations, projects, budgets, that we can tie it to one of these safe system buckets to make sure we're staying true to. We know we're addressing the greatest issues and putting our limited resources where they need to go, and not focusing on things in the transportation system that aren't necessarily going to make it safer for folks out there. So, this is what's coming next in 2025. Lots to come about this, but we are developing that action plan. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the transportation mobility plan was adopted February, March, can't remember the exact date, but at the beginning of this year, with the idea Vision Zero is definitely mentioned and set up to basically be what comes next after the Transportation Mobility Plan, which is really where we're going to get into those specific projects about where do we need to design and rebuild things. What are those specific programs we need to launch? What are those specific procedures we either need to change or develop from scratch that don't exist? What are those policies that exist that need to be changed or be developed that don't exist to make sure that we can accomplish the Vision Zero goal? Because we might have things in our standards and policies right now that would be really helpful to do, but our standards right now are a little outdated and may not allow us to. So there's going to still be a lot of setup work that needs to happen while we start figuring out what projects can we start now and seek funding for to get them done essentially as soon as possible.
Can I ask a quick question about funding? So you mentioned earlier grant funding. Where are your funding sources primarily from?
So right now the city is funding at a certain level. There's internal city funds, funding some stuff, but we also got a federal grant. It's paused. It's one of those that's been paused. So we're looking at alternative funding sources to pay for this. We have found we're going to pay for the action plan with internal funds, so we don't just wait for federal funds. There's been a little action on the federal funds. The funding that we got was one of the first batches the federal government has released as of Friday. So we've been waiting 6 months, and it was released on Friday. So new language in contracts. We'll have to figure out, what's going on with the money, but we're moving ahead with internal funds as far as we can get while we still wait for grant funds. So to get to developing our action plan, which ideally we would like to start in September. Essentially, we're going to do an annual Vision Zero update, hopefully to council in August, using that as hey, we're launching into the action plan, sort of officially with the public in September. That's sort of the time frame we're looking at. These are the things that we're going to want to try to accomplish and work on between now and then. So this is we, like you, connecting with a lot of the advisory boards to talk about engagement, which is Dylan going to do next year. We are going to launch a bunch of the data sharing, this transparent data sharing platforms that we've been building. We want to get those launched before we start. We need to identify our consultants. We need to develop some additional educational marketing materials. We will be launching a steering committee specifically for the development of the action plan. I'll probably send some information to you, Lonnie, and maybe Ronnie too, about can there maybe be a representative from this board, from the staff perspective, and maybe the board member perspective on that steering committee, knowing that older adults is one of our key priority groups. We want to make sure that as the plan is being developed, that you all see from the lens that you can offer your expertise from, that we're not missing the boat on tackling things from the perspective of, will this help older adults? Just like we want to do the same, will this help youth and families? Just like the other, will this help folks with disabilities? Will this help reduce fatal and serious injury crashes? So we'll have an official group that will meet a set number of times. There'll be an invite for that, but just know I'll probably follow up with the specifics around that invite to get involved with you and Ronnie, if that's all right. Okay, I want to get through my stuff so we can get to Dylan's stuff. So real quick, screenshot of our very basic Vision Zero webpage right now. If you go here, here's the website, and we can send it in a link afterwards and share it with you all if that's easiest, if you'd like that. Again, Dylan also sent around the sign-up sheet if anybody would prefer that way. But you can register online to attend our Vision Zero task force meetings, and that is a group of members of the public who have been learning about Vision Zero, why we've kind of been building up towards the action plan. Those meetings every 2 months right now. Our next meeting happens to be tomorrow night here. Start time 6, yeah.
5:30.
6 to 7:30. Had so many meetings this week, I got lost. So anyone's more than welcome to come. If you don't register, that's okay. You're still more than welcome to come. It just helps us. We provide food, so it gives us a food count. You can also sign up for our newsletter, but if you assign this today, you'll automatically get signed up. And then coming soon is going to be the action plan development. It's going to be really a lot of community-based discussions and events that we'll do, and then there'll be the steering committee is kind of the two big buckets that will move forward to engage with community.
What time
So-
is it tomorrow night?
Oh, sure, 6 to 7:30 in the big front room. Not sure what that room's called. So I'm going to kick it over to Dylan now. We have time for question and answers at the end. I know we can open a huge can of worms about specifics, but we really want to use the rest of the time, if we're open to it, to have Dylan lead you through a guided discussion around community engagement and seniors, and then we can do our Q&A at the end, so we don't waste too much time on some of the stuff I presented, because I can always come back and do more with whomever
We want to be
wants.
respectful of time. I know it's 10:33, so this could be a whole presentation in and of its own, so I don't want to rush through this because this is really, really important. So I'll
Okay.
leave it up to you all.
I'm not sure exactly what time.
So we can always come back on the sticky notes. What you could do if we can't have this conversation today is just write down 3 groups, community groups, nonprofits, organizations that you want us to reach out to. And from now until we have this discussion about community engagement, we can try and reach out to them, start kind of building those connections. So I don't want to take up all your time because I know we only have 30 minutes.
I think we're still
We
on time.
actually had longer planned for the other presentation, so you can still do about 15 minutes.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Oh,
That works for us.
Could
Happy
you
to
get
take
enough
advantage
done
of
that
it.
you feel like it's worth it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So
Good, let's go ahead and do
Do you
that
want me
then.
to?
No, I got
We'll
I'll
trade.
do it from back here.
Oh, okay.
All right. So don't do anything with the sticky notes yet, because we do have some questions here in the discussion. So part of Vision Zero will be community engagement. We really want to inform the action plan from the community level up, obviously changing some of the more systematic pieces, making our roads safer, and ultimately getting to the 2040 goal of zero traffic crashes and fatalities and serious injuries. So I did want to frame community engagement because there's so many different definitions. For the sake of this presentation, we'll kind of frame community engagement as an internal process with the purpose of working in inclusive and respectful ways to shape decisions, actions, impacts, or change. So just very broadly, this process is both purposeful and goal-driven, trust and relationship-focused, values-based and people-centered, inclusive and equity-centered, and impact and outcome-oriented. So just kind of the general definition for you all. The